Back to you, Trisha.
Thank you, Dr. Matsanga. We're still waiting on Rutendo, but just for people who are requesting the mics, I have seen your requests. We're not trying to mute anyone or to block anyone. We're trying to keep at least one mic open for our last guest speaker who has not arrived yet. But the debate will go on. I think to begin with, we'll hear from Bashwana in the order that Dr. Matsanga has given us. Bashwana, Vawombe, and Mohammed. If you can stick to the time, because our speakers have been here on time and I'm sure they have a lot to contribute to this discussion. Thank you. Bashwana, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Matsanga. How are you? Thank you so much, sir. And I truly appreciate for the job well done you're doing for Africa and for the future generation. It's something that we cannot take away from you, but actually to tap more wisdom and more knowledge from you. I salute you. Right, coming to the topic of today. Number one, I want, when I speak, I usually want to give some examples. Before I touch the issue of Zimbabwean gold, right, I want to describe geopolitics at play today. Who is Qatar? Qatar wants to be a big brother of Middle East, which is getting support from United States of America. We know what they did a few years ago during Donald Trump's time when he was in office. They come up with what they call Abraham Accord. And that's when they signed the deals with Israel. But today, what is happening in Middle East, where the Saudi Arabia, the Iranians, and Dubai itself, UAE, has actually left Qatar in kind of cold room, geopolitically, if we want to put it that way. Coming to the issue of Al Jazeera, I made my own Google search and Google investigation. I realized that the Al Jazeera English department or English channel, the CEO is an American based in New York and is in charge of over 50 countries globally. And fast forward to the interview which was done I think yesterday. The producer of documentaries, he mentioned something which is very, very critical for every African child to understand where this war is coming from. The producer, by the name Alexander James, he said their work is under the United Kingdom or the British government regulatory. So in other words, what they do in terms of the documentaries, after they finish their work, it goes there and then it goes through the sort of like a furnace so that they can bring out the propaganda they want to push to the world. And then the biggest question is, why are they doing that? It's because there's a war of information, war of media across the globe. That's the reason why now you see issues that is coming from Russia today. You will not see it in any platform that belongs to Europe and United States of America, Canada, Australia, and so forth. It is a war of information, right? Right. Let me come to the issue of gold. Dr. Matsanga, you're 100% correct. No single Zimbabwean who is a miner and who mines gold today has complained that his gold or her gold was stolen. The process is, for one to be a miner, even myself, I've got a small claim in Zimbabwe to mine gold, right? And it's located along or on the line of what we call Great Dyke. So this belt, it comes from the top of Zimbabwe down to southern part of Zimbabwe. And it happens that I was born and raised in that particular belt. And by that virtue, I've got an opportunity, or I had an opportunity to have a piece of mining claim in Zimbabwe. And that mining claim, I got the claim in 2006. 26 May 2006. That's when I got that claim, right? I, as ordinary Zimbabwe, one who want to understand where did it come from. It actually came from 2000 when we took our land. Before we took our land, none of us, no black Zimbabwean would own a piece of mine or a piece of land. If you own a piece of mine, it means there's a white man who is mining in behalf of you. And if he's mining in behalf of you, you will not get the proceeds because it's a big boy business, right? So it's really important for one to understand why our Jazeera is coming and fighting the ordinary person like me who is mining a gold in Zimbabwe. It's a war between the superpowers, and it's a war between me as a black child or me as an African who has not been mining gold since 1800 when Sister John Rons came to Africa, and I started to mine it in 2000. I want you guys to get to understand that it's a fundamental reason why we are in the fight. In 2000, the government of Zimbabwe was taken to court by the white supremacists in Zimbabwe. It was known as Tribunal Court in SADC. The reason why they were taken to court, it was they wanted the land back. And the President Robert Mugabe said, we are not going to give you land, even if the Tribunal Court ruled in favor of you. Black people first, and we went to war for that. And you lost the war, you as British, and the reason why we went to war, it was the black majority must have control of their land. And that land has got mineral underneath, right? So, Dr. Matsanga, let me not take much time. I just want to go through with you in a short of 1 minute. If you get a license as artisanal mine or as young miners in Zimbabwe, right? You sell your gold instead to agencies. And these agencies, they've got licenses. The miners have got licenses. The buyers have got licenses. Those licenses are actually coming from the government of Zimbabwe, not from Qatar. It is the government of Zimbabwe which is empowering its people through mining, through agriculture, through tourism, because the land is ours. So when one mines gold, the buyers will come and buy gold in hard cash, because the sanctions that Zimbabwe was given, it actually reduced our banking system to nothing. So the buyers will come with hard cash, US dollars, hard cash. So what does that mean? It means the economy of Zimbabwe stay afloat because that man is circulating in the system, which is now paying to the Americans. Because it has actually made the people of Zimbabwe to keep them busy and not to turn against their government, because they've got something, they've got food on their table. Right? So when these buyers, the big buyers comes now, they've got licenses to buy gold from the agencies who have got gold that they bought from the miners, and also from the Fidelity, which is the agents, a department of government. And this agents was formed after two state-owned enterprises were given sanctions by United States of America, which is MMCZ and ZMDC. These are companies which are well known in Zimbabwe, in Southern Africa, in SADC, and also in Africa, and at world at large, that they are supposed to sell minerals on behalf of Zimbabwe. But those companies, if you go right now on American website, sanctions on Zimbabwe, you realize that today, as we are talking, these companies, they were given sanctions since 2000. It's now 23 years. So the government came up with with this subsidiary called Fidelity. And Fidelity is the one that now selling gold on behalf of the state and on behalf of Zimbabwean people. Right? So when these buyers coming to Zimbabwe, they are not coming empty-handed. They are bringing their money and they buy gold. When they left Zimbabwe, they are leaving Zimbabwe with a gold which they've got license, which have got everything. So my question to you guys, who is smuggling gold in Zimbabwe when every transaction is done according to the laws of Zimbabwe? who is smuggling Zimbabwe and who is losing gold here. Dr. Matsanga, the war that you are fighting on behalf of Zimbabwean people, we thank you so much and we truly appreciate. As a child of Africa, I salute you. Keep on doing this good job. You are not doing it for me, but you're actually doing it for my son, Shona, and you're doing it for my grandson who is going to come after me. And for these words only, I say thank you so much, sir, and I'll give others opportunity maybe to continue on what I've said or to remove on what I've said. I truly appreciate. Many thanks.
Thank you, Bashona. Vahombe, if we can hear from you, and then we'll go to Mohammed.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Trisha. Dr. Matsanga, you finished everything that I wanted to say. Dr. Matsanga, are you here?
I am around. I'm
Whose gold is
monitoring and keeping the platform very disciplined. I want, don't fear whether you are in the CC, Triple C, MDC, any little party, small parties, some PF. Come on the platform here, tell us who is complaining about this gold. Anybody who has killed someone and stolen it, come.
That's why I said you finished everything. Whose gold is it? Who's looting gold in Zimbabwe? But anyway, thanks very much, Dr. Matsanga, for opening this platform. And also thank you very much to the previous speaker, Bashona, for very eloquently articulating the condition and the situation that we are finding ourselves in Zimbabwe. To those listeners that are here tonight, I think it is a great honor and a pleasure that you are listening to my voice, as I'm going to just add a little bit of truth to what Babashona has said. In this case, let me start by saying people must not lose focus, because the bigger picture here, we have got, in fact, Zimbabwe is at war with the Americans and the British and the entire European Union. And this war did not start today. It started 23 years ago in 2000 when Zimbabwe took its land. And these guys, they came guns blazing in attacking Zimbabwe by throwing all the missiles which they had in terms of trying to suffocate the economy of Zimbabwe and make sure that the people of Zimbabwe will overthrow their government, and they will then install a puppet government which is going to be lenient or subservient to the demands of the West. But that has not happened 23 years, and we're still counting. So in this case, people must understand that when Babashona is talking about Al Jazeera being headquartered in 3 cities and 3 countries, which is number 1 in Doha, which is in Qatar, number 2 in London, which is in UK, number 3 Washington DC, which is in the United States. If you can connect the dots, especially considering the fact that the very same journalist who is behind the Al Jazeera documentary, yesterday on SABC News, he was asked that, is your documentary not a conspiracy theory? Then he said that they are regulated by Ofcom. Ofcom, which is based in the United Kingdom, which is the TV regulator of the TV stations in the United Kingdom. To those that can connect the dots, they know the beef that is there between the House of Lords in England and the government of Zimbabwe. Few months back, the House of Lords in England, they were busy debating the Zimbabwean politics and how they desire to actually punish the people of Zimbabwe and they punish the government of Zimbabwe. And when we see this, it's not surprising today that we are seeing another conspiracy theory, the same, that is just like what they did on Iraq, on the basis of the same falsehoods, which Al Jazeera, it's the very same Al Jazeera, created another false narrative about Iraq, that they are busy making weapons of mass destruction. It was the very same Al Jazeera that manufactured that documentary. And we saw Iraq being bombed being invaded by the United States. It was invaded by the United Kingdom, and millions of people died after that. The very same Al Jazeera was behind that. So it's not surprising today if they are now starting to manufacture another conspiracy theory about Zimbabwe. Their main aim is to make sure that the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe is grey-listed and the West Steel is blacklisted. And once it's blacklisted, it has been excluded from the little correspondence banking that it has at the moment, which is 1 or 2, if I'm not mistaken, because the rest was taken away soon after the imposition of sanctions. So in this case, it will then make it very difficult for anyone to operate in Zimbabwe once the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe has been grey-listed or it has been blacklisted. So we have been in this position before. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe was actually removed from the grey list not so long ago, after America was actually saying that Zimbabwe must be excluded from the global financial system through its sanctions. So in this case, it's not surprising that they are now doing all this, they are now playing all these gimmicks. But what is interesting is that in that documentary, that part 1, we have seen that there is no Zimbabwean miner that is saying that he or she provided his or her own gold and he or she did not receive your money. We have not seen any Zimbabwean businessman or miner that is saying that their gold was looted by these so-called criminals. We have not seen any Zimbabwean miner that has come out in that documentary to tell the world that I have provided my gold to this so-called gold buyers and gold exporters, and they never paid me my money. There's no one who has gone to the police in Zimbabwe to report that his or her own gold is missing, or his or her own gold was looted by these so-called criminal syndicates. So in this case, this documentary is just a documentary full of nothing. At the moment, as you can see, they are just trying to throw mud on the face of government, on the face of the president, so that they can now execute their own target, their own strategy, which is to make sure that they cripple the government of Zimbabwe. They make sure that they make it difficult for the people in Zimbabwe, because these people that are doing this, they know very well that the cities like London, they were built out of gold. Cities in America, they were built out of gold. And they know the impact of gold in terms of building a nation, in terms of building infrastructure. So today, as you can see, prior to the coming in of the government of President E.D. Mnangagwa, we had a government which was under President Mugabe, which did not bust the sanctions, like what Dr. Matsanga is encouraging the current government. The previous government was failing to bust the sanctions. That's why there was problem with the government paying the civil servants in Zimbabwe. That's why there was a problem of not having infrastructure development under President Mugabe. But under President Mnangagwa, he came with a new strategy to make sure that we bust these sanctions. That's why you see, if you come into Zimbabwe, you are going to see that Zimbabwe has become a construction site. There are new projects that are popping up in every corner, every city, every province. There are new dams that are being built, being constructed today. Irrigation that people are talking about, having what do you call it, having a bumper harvest in terms of the wheat. This is coming from the irrigation. The money is coming from the very same gold proceeds that are actually being sold by the government. Now, in this case, we find out if to those that are coming from South Africa, coming to Harare, when they drive from, just when they enter into Zimbabwe, they can see that the Bait Bridge has been facelifted. It has become a world-class border post. And if you drive along the Bait Bridge Harare Highway, you are going to see that things have completely changed. Where do you think that money is coming from? The government is actually utilizing the proceeds, the taxes which they are taking from these gold buyers, and making sure that they utilize that money for the betterment of Zimbabwe and the betterment of the Zimbabwean lives. So in this case, it is actually interesting that we are finding Zimbabwean. Okay, no, it's fine. I will land, then I will hand over to other people. It is quite interesting that at this point in time, we find the Americans and the Europeans and the British buying the so-called journalists in Zimbabwe to actually sell the anger of the Americans to the Zimbabwean people so that the Zimbabwean people can overthrow their government, which I think it's actually an overstep by the Westerners. Because right now, if you look at what they are trying, the propaganda which they are trying to sell to the people of Zimbabwe is that your gold is being looted. But in any case, whose gold is it anyway? Because when gold is still in the ground, it belongs to the people of Zimbabwe, it belongs to the government of Zimbabwe. But if somebody goes, it's either an individual or a company, goes to the government of Zimbabwe and apply for mineral rights, he gets the mineral rights, he goes and mine the gold and take it out of the ground, it's no longer belonging to the government of Zimbabwe. That gold now belongs to the miner. That person that has mined that particular gold is the owner of that gold. So people must stop being misled by saying that our gold is being looted, our gold is being stolen, our future is being stolen. That's nonsense. It must come to an end. People must understand that gold in Zimbabwe, it belongs to the miner, it belongs to the buyer. Thank you.